Chapter 9. Inner Enemy or Crock of Crap. Detective Martin went through the morning task force briefing on remote control. She remembered little other than saying, "Don't bother me with problems that you need to take care of. Just do your job." She had no idea of the progress of the case. When she came back to her office after the morning task force briefing, a folder with the word spooky scrawled across the front was sitting in the middle of her desk. She opened it and found a note. "People have asked me how I have been able to solve cases that I and no one else could solve before. It was really what I didn't do that allowed me to see things that others couldn't. There were a few things that I read in the Dalai Lama's Transforming the Mind. I kind of put them together, and as best as I can remember it, it goes something like this. The ultimate aim is to eradicate all the negative emotional thoughts that give rise to negative actions. They are the inner enemy. When we allow the inner enemy to rule and control our thoughts and emotions, we close ourselves off to possibilities. Our thinking becomes cloudy, and we don't see the world as it really is. We miss the clues and misinterpret the evidence. When I realized that I could see more clearly and be more open, everything fell into place. I had ideas and insights that I had never had before. That was the difference. I hope that this helps with the case. Remember that hate kills the mind. Take care of yourself. You arrogant son of a bitch. The inner enemy? It was what he didn't do that allowed him to see things. What a crock of crap." Martin closed the folder, held it over the trash can, and loosened her grip. Like a falling deck of cards, the papers spilled into the can. The last to fall was the folder. She took a last look at the note, violently wadded it up, and thrust it into the can. With her anger churning just below the surface, the phone rang. "Detective Martin," she snapped. "Who ran over your dog?" Martin recognized the voice. It was Melinda. Martin calmed somewhat. "I'm sorry. I'm just a little edgy. The case and all. Well, I've got something that might interest you." "Like what?" "Like come on down and see. Just tell me." "What, and miss being able to brag about it and see your face." "Just get down here." "Melinda." "I know. Just come down. It's worth the trip." Martin dropped the handset onto the cradle. "I don't need this right now. Just a little peace and quiet for a few minutes. That's all I ask." She gathered herself, took a deep breath, exhaled a little anger, and headed down to the morgue. With a broad smile, Melinda was waiting on the other side of the young woman's body when Martin entered. "So, what's so important that I have to come down here immediately?" "I found something," she announced, and then stopped. Folding her arms, Martin gave Melinda her best impatient pose and said, "We're not going to play the guessing game, are we? Somebody did run over your dog, didn't they? Just get on with it. Must have run over the cat, too. Okay, while going over the body more thoroughly a second time, as I always do, I found something wedged in the woman's vagina." Melinda had sparked Martin's curiosity. Thoughts of Parker disappeared. His comments disappeared. The note in the folder vanished. She felt as if she had been released from a cage. Martin moved closer to the body and looked at the woman's vagina. "So, what did you find?" "This." Melinda held up a piece of cloth, 3/4 by 7 inches. "Why the hell would the killer put that in there? It was rolled up very tightly. When I finally got it unrolled, I saw this." Melinda put the piece of cloth under the projector, and the image showed up on the 52-inch flat screen. "Is that writing?" Lindy asked. "Yes, it is. At first, I thought it might be Italian or Spanish, but now I don't know. This is going to sound weird, but it might be Latin." "What do you think it says?" "First of all, I don't read Latin, but I used internet translation sites. But there are just too many possibilities because there are only fragments of words. I'm going to have to get this to someone who specializes in recovering stuff like this. I don't want to screw up the material and lose everything. Can't you even take a guess? I put in parts of the words that I could see, but most of the time nothing came up. I tried guessing at the rest of the word, but there are just too many possibilities, and when I did hit on a real word, it didn't make sense. Plus, with so few discernible words, there was no context for the sentence. Besides, I found out that in Latin, verbs come at the end of the sentence, and that screws with my mind. The only people that I know who speak Latin are Catholic priests. So, I'll get a Catholic priest. I know one. You just get someone down here to work on making the writing more visible. Lindy walked to the flat screen and took a picture with her iPhone. Martin felt inspired. Until now, she worried that the case, although still in its infancy, had become stagnant. The case had a grisly corpse with no identification, a drop site for the body, and no murder site, and only one unknown suspect with a description straight out of a horror flick. The only obvious connection was that the murder was probably a statement about abortion. The typical forensics had proven to be unhelpful. So, while small blurry letters on a small piece of material were not a flashing light pointing to the killer, it was something intriguing. For Detective Martin, finding a Catholic priest was not going to be difficult. Christ Our Savior Catholic Church was downtown, a mere 5 minutes from the downtown police headquarters. However, the visit would likely be uncomfortable. Martin had not knelt or genuflected in nearly a year, and had only seen the inside of Father Patrick O'Donovan's parish 7 months ago, when she attended her mother's funeral service. She didn't take Mass then. She was fairly sure that she still believed in God, but considering the state of humanity that she had to witness every day, if there was a God, she wondered if he had taken a prolonged vacation, or he was just doing a shitty job, or he just didn't give a shit anymore. What she didn't want to admit was that Parker's Zen crap had rubbed off on her. Father O'Donovan. The priest in her parish was a walking cliché. He was Irish, and his name was Father Patrick O'Donovan. He was kind and old and very forgiving. His red hair had long since faded and was working its way to white. He had become portly over the past 4 years. Detective Martin attributed the growth to wine and Irish whiskey, rumored to be his favorite gifts. Martin expected to find Father O'Donovan easily. He rarely left the church grounds. However, she hoped that she would not catch him kneeling in prayer. She had once and found it hard to witness him rise. He, however, kept a sense of humor about his infirmity, remarking that it nearly required an act of God to get him to his feet. So, he was lucky to be praying. He kept a meticulous schedule, and in all the time that she had gone to the church, he had never been sick, or at least never allowed it to interrupt his duties. She went to the parish offices, and as expected, that same aged yellowed schedule was posted outside to the right of the door. It was 10 in the morning, and he would be walking in the garden that he used to tend when he could get down and up more readily. Now, he was just glad to be walking gingerly through it. She saw his slouched Irish figure leaning against the cane that made her think shillelagh. Father O'Donovan? He didn't turn around. She walked closer and spoke louder. Father O'Donovan? She moved behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. Father O'Donovan? He straightened a little and turned. I didn't mean to startle you. He removed the earbuds and turned off his iPod. With remnants of his Irish accent, he said, I'm too old to be startled. It might cause a heart attack. So, where have you been, Lindy? I haven't seen you since your mother's service. No Mass. No confession. I hope you have a plausible reason. I've been busy. Too busy for the Lord. He smiled. She didn't know how to respond, but Father O'Donovan was too kind-hearted to let anyone simmer in guilt. As long as you're still doing God's work and catching the evildoers, God will understand. However, a Mass and confession now and again would do you some good. Anyway, what brings you to God's house? A murder. I'm sorry. It's troubling you a great deal, isn't it? Yes. It's a very gruesome murder with overtones of abortion as a message. I don't know if you want to hear the details. If it will help, I can endure it. Okay, but if it gets too horrible, tell me to stop. I shall, but you would be surprised what I have heard. Okay. As Lindy built the image of what the woman had endured, Father O'Donovan grimaced more and more. Finally, he walked to a nearby bench and sat. Lindy stopped and sat beside him. I'm sorry, Father. Horrified, Father O'Donovan's hands trembled. He closed his eyes and mumbled a few incoherent words, and then, staring at the ground, he fell silent. What? She asked. Nothing. It's just so very disturbing. He gathered himself and looked at her. So, what can I do? There was a note written on a piece of cloth, and we think it is in Latin, and we would like you to translate it. I'll do the best I can. He held out his hand. Let me see it. We haven't restored all of the writing yet. They're working on that at a lab right now. But this is what we have so far. She brought up the shot of the note on her phone and handed it to Father O'Donovan. Not really a lot here. I can't make much from this. I can see a UT and an EC and I think that's skew. That's most likely Eris. Sorry. There's just not enough here. Well, thanks for trying. When you have more of it, just call. You haven't forgotten the number for the parish, have you? No, she lied. She was already awkwardly embarrassed and found the lie slipping out before she had thought to tell the truth. She would check the information at the top of his posted schedule for the phone number. She rose and offered to help him up, but he said that he wanted to sit a while longer. He gazed up at her. Why don't you stay a little while longer and talk about the other thing that is bothering you? I could help. She ignored the offer. If something more in the case comes up where you could help, I'll let you know, but for now, this is the only thing that is really an issue now. I wasn't talking about the case. The conversation between the captain and Parker sprung from hiding. The animosity she felt for Parker started to seep to the surface. She feared that it showed. She had known that Father O'Donovan was a perceptive man. Now, she wondered if he was psychic. There's nothing else. I'm fine. Lindy, when you finally admit to yourself that you're not fine, come to see me. I promise we won't talk about your loss of faith in the church. Lindy simply nodded her head and left. But now she had Parker back on her mind, taunting. Chapter 10. The message. Melinda pulled the glass jar containing the cloth note from the refrigerator. It had been sealed tightly and as much of the air taken out as was possible. She had never been this nervous before, but she had never had a single piece of evidence this critical before. She opened the lid. The writing had faded and blurred even more. Blood drained from her head, and she had to steady herself by putting her hand on the counter. Originally, the writing in the center of the rolled-up cloth was dark enough to read some of the letters, but as the writing approached the other end of the cloth, it faded and blurred to the point that it was unreadable, and by the end of the cloth, the writing had vanished. Now, it was worse than it was when she first unraveled it. She still had the original phone picture that she had taken, but the quality and detail were poor. If she had been able to light it properly, it might have been better, but her fear that light might affect the material caused her to refrain. She needed higher resolution. Damn it! Camera! Where does he keep that damn camera? Home? No, please not at home. She rushed across the room and began opening cabinets, pushing items aside, opening drawers, rummaging carelessly. She saw the large flash attachment for the camera. She moved it aside. No camera. One last drawer left. She yanked it open. It was empty except for an empty cloth bag and the camera's instruction manual. God damn it! His locker. The phone rang. She hesitated, then ignored it. By the third ring, she was out the door and down the hall to the lockers. They had combination locks. She looked around the room. There was nothing to pry it open. She ran to the custodian's room. It was locked. She slammed her shoulder into the door. Only her shoulder moved. The door frame was metal. Why didn't you answer your phone? Melinda put her shoulder to the door again. What the hell are you doing, Melinda? I need some tools. Just shut up and help. I'm not. If you don't help, we'll lose the evidence. Captain Johnson kicked the door near the handle. The door shook. He kicked again. It shook more, and the handle bent. He kicked again. The door moved half an inch. He kicked again. The doorknob fell off, and the door swung open. Find a hammer or a crowbar or something. We need to get a locker open. Why the? Just do it, she shouted. And hurry. Both of them searched frantically. Got it, the captain said excitedly. Melinda snatched the hammer out of his hand, ran back to the locker with the captain right behind her. She hit the lock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It was being driven further into the locker. She handed the hammer to the captain. Beat the damn thing in, she implored. The captain took the hammer and hit the lock repeatedly. Damn, this better be important. I'm going back to the morgue. If the camera's in the locker, bring it. She quickly moved toward the door, hesitated, and yelled over her shoulder. And bring the case with his lenses. Melinda rushed back to the morgue, slung the door open, picked up her cell phone, and began rapidly taking a series of close-up shots of every letter. She hoped that with a graphics program, enough of the letters might be retrieved to make sense of the message. She knew the resolution would be low, but it would be better than nothing. The morgue door swung open. It was the captain. He had the camera. He handed it to her. She hunted quickly through the bag, found the macro lens, fastened it to the camera body, added the flash attachment, and began taking pictures. At 12 she stopped. She set the camera on the counter, and then leaned against the counter. I take it that something was happening to the writing on the cloth, the captain commented. Melinda pulled the GL. Yes. The writing was disappearing. I just hope we can put the pictures in the computer and come up with something. As she headed to the computer on her desk, she asked, So what did you want to talk to me about? Oddly enough, the message. Well, you've got your answer. Sorry about the yelling. Melinda felt that she needed to justify her outbursts, so she quickly explained her dilemma to the captain. She had been caught between the proverbial rock and hard place. For fear that she would lose the writing, she had not checked it for prints. It was a decision that she wondered if she would regret, especially since the writing was disappearing. Try to get the fingerprints, and if there were no prints, the writing might have been destroyed for nothing. Try to get the writing, and if that failed, destroy the prints in the process and have nothing. Try to get both and lose both. She had opted to wait for a lab to recover the writing, but now the writing was disappearing, and she had no idea if there would be any prints to recover if the writing was lost. She was in a panic. The only real piece of evidence so far was vanishing. The closest labs sophisticated enough to recover the writing on the cloth were forensic labs in San Francisco and Los Angeles. It usually took 2 weeks to get the results back from San Francisco, and even longer from Los Angeles. Well, I guess that's worth a doorknob and a locker door. Next time tell Jesse to leave the camera in the morgue. I'm sure that he locks it in his locker to keep people from stealing it. So, how well did that work? We got it. In the future, we need to have a heavy-duty lock put on a drawer in your office, and then each of you can keep one of the keys. So, let's see what you have. Melinda hooked the camera to the computer. She put the best shot in Photoshop and started to experiment. Maybe we should get a Photoshop expert, Captain Johnson observed. I am an expert. Then that solves one problem. Melinda looked over her shoulder. You make me nervous. Leave. There sure are a lot of women on edge these days. I thought Detective Martin was going to tear her door off its hinges. She's under a lot of pressure, and add that to Parker leaving, and she's having trouble coping. She hates him and wants him to go because she loves him. Bizarre. Anyway, get the hell out of here and let me work. Done. Call me when you get something. Okay. Okay. Now get out. Melinda had worked for an hour before she realized that the last part of the writing was beyond recovery. What was clear was sic it fake it in the first row, sic absky in the second. Faded but partially readable was absky liber in the first row and libris erit in the second. The rest had disappeared. Melinda pushed herself away from the computer and sighed. She had saved most of it. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the flashing red light on the answering machine of her desk phone. There were 2 messages. One was obviously from the captain. She played it. I know you're there, so answer your phone. If I have to, I'll come down there. He sounded as if he were jokingly angry. The second message was from Detective Martin. Just talked to Father O'Donovan, and he said that he'd be happy to help. Hope you got something. See you in a few. You were just now playing my message? Melinda recognized Martin's voice. Yes. You wouldn't believe what I just went through. Melinda explained what had happened. But you did get something from the writing, right? Here, take a look. That's not bad. Missing quite a few words, but still pretty damn good. I'm going to see if I can get some fingerprints off it now. Come back in about a half hour. If you don't mind, I think I'd rather wait here. I just don't want to go back to that office yet. Too many memories? No, not at all. That's not it. You just keep saying that to yourself, and maybe someday you'll believe it. I won't, but maybe you can trick yourself. Just get the prints, Martin curtly said and sat at Melinda's desk. Melinda used several traditional methods, but no prints came to life. She now felt justified in attempting to save the writing. Then she thought, odd color ink. I wonder if... She went to her kit, pulled out a bottle, turned out the lights, and returned to the message. She took a deep breath, looked skyward, and said, Please let this work. She sprayed the cloth. Spots began to appear. They made letters, and the letters made words. She quietly mumbled, I'll be damned. The little pervert wrote the message in blood. It hadn't turned out perfectly, but it was damn good. She took several shots of the message. Melinda looked over at Lindy. Sorry, Lindy, there were just no fingerprints. It was a long shot at best. Damn it. Melinda brought out her best, wicked smile. However, I did get something else. Do you want to know what this clever girl did? Don't play with me, Melinda. I'm in no mood for games. Hell, you've been in a bad mood for months. Ever since. Martin cut her off. Don't go there. Don't you dare go there. Run away from the truth if you want to. It's your choice. That's right, it's my choice. Lindy rose and walked to the counter where Melinda had been working on the message. You clever girl, Lindy observed. You sprayed the message with luminol. Damn smart, right? He wrote it in blood. I'll see if there's enough to match it to the victim. 10-1 says it's her blood. Now all we have to do is get the priest in here for a translation. He's old and tottering around with a cane. Let's just take a copy to him. He'll be at afternoon confession about now. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It'll be good for your soul. Funny, very funny. Melinda drove with Martin to the church.